The moment I saw the message, something inside me died. Not all at once. It was slow, like a candle smothered under glass, flickering helplessly until nothing but smoke remained. It was 8:47 p.m. I remember the glow of her phone lighting up on the kitchen counter as I made our daughter's school lunches. Jennifer was upstairs, supposedly finishing a proposal. The screen read, "I can't wait. Come quickly. I miss your warmth." From a contact named Blue Lotus. My name is Tom. I'm 41, a history teacher in Northern Illinois, and I've been married for 9 years. Jennifer was, a marketing analyst with a sharp mind, a sharper tongue, and a smile that could melt asphalt in July. We have a daughter, Mary. She just turned 6. And for the better part of a decade, I thought we were happy. Maybe not exciting, but safe. Consistent. That illusion shattered like a dropped wine glass in the seconds it took me to process that message. But my story doesn't begin there. It begins with a watch. An old, elegant thing. Silver bezel, cream dial, leather strap cracked with time. I gave it to her on our 4th anniversary. She'd cried, said no one had ever given her something so personal. "It's like you understand time better than anyone," she whispered back then, pulling me close. The watch stopped working a few months ago. 23:12, exactly 11:12 p.m. I replaced the battery, wounded. Nothing. Just dead hands, frozen in that quiet minute before midnight. Then, oddly, it stopped again the following month. Same time. 23:12. Twice, I told myself it was coincidence. 3 days ago, I found the watch again while cleaning under the dresser. It was ticking. But when I picked it up, it stopped. Right at 23:12. I took it to a tiny repair shop tucked in a strip mall. The man behind the counter looked older than the watch itself. He squinted at the face, ran his fingers along the rim, and then said, so softly I almost didn't hear, "December 23rd, beware of that date." I laughed nervously. "What?" He handed it back to me, refusing payment. "The ones who come here before that date, don't usually return." I remember shoving it into my coat pocket, driving home with the windows down despite the chill, just to feel something. But that night, everything began to change. Jennifer had started waking in the middle of the night, gasping, whispering strange things. "The man without eyes," she muttered once, clawing at the sheets. Another night, she cried and held me like she was grieving something invisible. Then she started visiting psychics. Tarot readers. "Just curious," she said. "I'm getting weird dreams." She started using incense I'd never seen before. The house began to smell of myrrh, lavender, and something else, sharp, spicy, almost metallic. I didn't believe in signs. In omens. I taught facts, after all. Lincoln's letters, civil wars, treaties, and truths. But the way Jennifer started pulling away from me, like the air between us thickened each day with secrets. I couldn't deny something was wrong. She stopped wearing the watch. She said it made her wrist itch. She started working late. Leaving her phone in airplane mode. Claiming her boss was micromanaging everyone and she needed silence. I wanted to believe her. God, I needed to. But that was before the message from Blue Lotus. Before the scent of cologne that wasn't mine lingered on her jacket. Before I watched her through the cafe window, her face lit by laughter, a hand brushing the cheek of a man I didn't recognize. She looked younger. Lighter. Like she'd shed something heavy. Like I wasn't even a memory anymore. And then my real hell had just begun. I told myself I was imagining things. That was the first betrayal, mine, against myself. Jennifer had always been complicated. Beautiful in that classical, smoky-eyed way, long auburn hair that curled slightly when she slept on it wet, high cheekbones that never needed makeup, a way of biting her lower lip when deep in thought that used to drive me insane with love. She could walk into a room and not say a word and still make people listen. But she was also distant, sometimes. Guarded. I used to think it was part of what made her magnetic. Mysterious. Unreachable, in a good way. Like a book with one missing page that you couldn't stop rereading. Maybe I should have known even then. After I saw the message from Blue Lotus, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I couldn't. Because once the words leave your mouth, are you cheating on me? The world never goes back to the way it was. Even if the answer is no. I deleted the notification. Placed her phone back down on the counter. My hands were shaking. But I smiled when she came back into the room, wearing those soft flannel pajamas I bought her for Christmas. "Everything okay?" she asked, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Yeah," I lied, my voice tight. "Just tired." She kissed my cheek. Her lips were warm. Her perfume familiar. But in that moment, she felt like a stranger in Jennifer's skin. That night, I lay beside her in bed, eyes open in the dark, listening to her breathing. She fell asleep quickly, always did. Meanwhile, my mind played memories like old tapes. Our wedding. Her crying in the rain outside the hospital when Mary was born early. That night we danced in the kitchen to a song neither of us knew, barefoot, laughing over burnt garlic bread. Could it all have been real, if it ended like this? The next morning, I watched her pack her work bag, absently humming, tapping her fingers on the counter, moving with the grace of someone who had done this routine 1,000 times. But there was something different now. A looseness in her posture. A secret in her bones. "Big day at work?" I asked casually. She paused only a second. "Yeah. Big campaign. Could be huge if we land it." Her phone buzzed. She didn't check it. Just slid it into her bag and kept talking. But I saw the name flash on the screen. Blue Lotus. I smiled, tight-lipped. "Want me to pick up dinner tonight?" I asked. She hesitated. "Actually, might be late again. There's a team dinner. You know, for the pitch." I nodded. "Of course. Gotta impress the client." She kissed me quickly. "Love you." I didn't answer. She didn't notice. I sat in the kitchen long after she left, the smell of her perfume still lingering. I watched the clock. I watched the door. And I watched myself start to fall apart. The denial was strong. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Maybe Blue Lotus is a friend. A female coworker. Maybe it's part of a weird inside joke from work. Maybe the hug at the cafe was just platonic. But there were too many maybes now, and none of them fit anymore. Still. I wanted proof. I told myself I wouldn't snoop. That I wasn't that guy. But the truth is, pain makes you a stranger to yourself. So I started noticing things. Not searching. Just noticing. Her laundry had changed. New lingerie she never wore for me. Receipts for wine I didn't drink. A second toothbrush in her gym bag. And her dreams. They started getting worse. Some nights she woke up gasping. One night she sat bolt upright and said, "He was there again." In the mirror. Her voice was shaking. "He said we can't outrun what's promised." I asked who. She didn't answer. Just rolled over and whispered, "It's nothing. Just a dream." But it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like prophecy. And every time I passed the hallway drawer, the one where I'd placed the watch, I felt drawn to it. Like it held the next chapter of a story I didn't want to read. 2 nights later, the watch ticked again. I hadn't touched it. It sat there, cold and untouched, and ticking. I lifted it slowly. The hands were spinning wildly now, like they were chasing something they'd never catch. Then, suddenly, they stopped. 23:12. Same time. Same minute. Over and over again. I set it down, feeling like I was holding a piece of someone else's nightmare. And when I turned around, Jennifer was standing in the doorway. In the dark. Watching me. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice calm, but low. I swallowed. "Just, checking something." She nodded. Slowly. Then stepped closer, wrapped her arms around me. "You've been so tense lately," she whispered. "Is everything okay?" Her breath was warm against my ear. Her hands slipped under my shirt. But it felt rehearsed. Performed. Like someone playing a role they were starting to forget the lines for. I didn't pull away. But I didn't lean in either. Because somewhere deep down, I already knew. And yet, I still wasn't ready to hear it out loud. Not yet. I wish I could tell you the betrayal hit all at once, like a sudden collapse. But it didn't. It was more like watching cracks spread across glass, slow, deliberate, inevitable. And still, I tried to look through it like nothing had changed. After the third time the watch stopped at 23:12, I stopped pretending it didn't matter. I started checking her phone when she left it on the nightstand. It was locked, of course. She never used to lock it. That was new. But sometimes she forgot her Apple Watch on the charger. And that gave me just enough of a window. I don't know what I expected to find. But it wasn't a full archive of messages labeled simply BL. The first one I read made my stomach twist. "Your skin is still on my hands. I can't wash it off, and I don't want to." I scrolled further. Weeks of messages. Months. Photos. Plans. Emotions. This wasn't a fling. It was a relationship. A second life. Do you think he suspects? He's clueless. He's too wrapped up in school and parenting. He doesn't see me anymore. I must have stared at that one for 10 straight minutes. He doesn't see me anymore. What hurt the most wasn't the affair. It was the way she talked about me. Like I was just some background character in the movie of her life. Like I was furniture. Wallpaper. And Blue Lotus? He wasn't just anyone. His name was Sean. Coworker. Junior manager at her firm. 32, smooth talking, always buttoned up just tight enough to look like he cared. I'd met him once at a holiday party. He brought some weird spiced whiskey and talked about Burning Man like it was a religion. Jennifer said he was eccentric. I didn't think anything of him then. But now, every word I read felt like a brick to the chest. I can't sleep beside him anymore. Every breath feels like a lie. Then don't come home tonight. Stay here. What if he finds out? Then we run. And the worst part? They had a plan. A real one. To leave. Together. On December 23rd. The words of the old watchmaker echoed in my ears. Beware of that date. I thought about telling her I knew. I rehearsed it in the mirror. I imagined flipping the table during dinner. Screaming. Demanding. Shaming her. But when she walked into the kitchen that night, holding Mary's spelling homework and humming to herself like the world hadn't shattered, I couldn't do it. Instead, I smiled. Pretended. And decided I needed to see it with my own eyes. 2 nights later, she told me she'd be working late again. Some emergency pitch review. I might crash at Chloe's if it goes too long. I nodded. Be safe. She smiled, tight, distracted. Kissed Mary goodnight. Grabbed her tote bag. And left. 20 minutes later, I was in my car, parked 3 blocks down, watching. She didn't drive to the office. She drove to a little cafe near the river, dimly lit, known for its live jazz and cozy booths. She walked in. 10 minutes later, he arrived. Sean. They didn't shake hands. They didn't sit on opposite sides. He slid into the booth beside her, and she leaned into him like they were one body. His arm slipped behind her back. She tilted her head to his shoulder. He whispered something, and she laughed, deep and real, the kind of laugh she hadn't shared with me in months. And just like that, the lights inside me flickered out. They weren't afraid of being seen. They weren't hiding. It was like I was the secret. I was the one sneaking around. I was the ghost in their love story. I sat in my car, fists clenched so tight the steering wheel creaked. Part of me wanted to storm in and tear everything down in front of them. Make a scene. Make them feel what I was feeling. But I didn't. Because watching her touch his face, watching her eyes close as he kissed her hand, that hurt more than confrontation ever could. It confirmed everything. This wasn't about sex. Or boredom. Or one night. This was affection. Intimacy. Love, in the ugliest form possible. She came home that night just after midnight. Didn't shower. Didn't say a word. She crawled into bed beside me and whispered, "I'm so tired." I said nothing. My body was stone. My breath shallow. She curled into me, like muscle memory, and fell asleep within minutes. And I just lay there. Eyes wide. Heart numb. Staring at the ceiling while her perfume mixed with the scent of someone else's cologne. A thought burned into my brain. She doesn't know I know. And that, somehow, gave me back a piece of control. A tiny ember in the ruins. There's a specific kind of silence that settles in a house where love has died but the words haven't been spoken yet. It hums beneath every conversation. It curls inside every kiss goodnight. It's the silence of pretending. Of waiting for someone else to admit the obvious. That week, Jennifer was overly affectionate. Like her guilt was trying to erase itself through touch. She cooked more. Laughed louder. Wore that old blue sweater I once told her made her look like the sky before a summer storm. "Want to watch a movie tonight?" she asked, pouring wine. "Sure," I said. "Anything you want." She smiled. But her eyes flickered down. It was a Friday. Mary was sleeping over at a friend's house. We were alone. The movie played in the background, forgotten. She curled against me on the couch, her fingers slipping beneath the hem of my shirt. Her touch was soft, familiar, almost too careful. I turned toward her. She kissed me. Slow. Warm. Mechanical. Her lips moved like they remembered the dance but not the music. She pulled me upstairs. I followed. In our bedroom, she lit a candle. Vanilla and something floral. She unbuttoned her blouse with a trembling breath. She whispered my name. Her skin was warm beneath my hands, but I felt cold. Like touching her now was trespassing on someone else's home. We moved like strangers mimicking lovers. I tried to find her face in the dark. Tried to believe, even just for 1 second, that maybe this meant something again. But halfway through, her body tensed. Not with pleasure. With conflict. Like part of her was still elsewhere. She turned her face away when I tried to kiss her mouth. I froze. "Look at me," I whispered. She hesitated. Then met my gaze, and that was when I saw it. Grief. Not passion. Not desire. Grief. Because part of her already knew she was losing me. Not because I would leave, but because I'd already disappeared behind my own silence. Afterwards, she lay still. Curled on her side. Back to me, again. Her breathing slowed. But I was wide awake. I stared at the watch on my nightstand. It was ticking. But the hands pointed to 23:12. Again. A chill ran through me that no blanket could warm. And for the first time in my life, I truly believed that time wasn't just a measurement, it was a warning. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark of our once shared bedroom, each tick of the clock pounding like a verdict. I couldn't shake the image of the watch frozen at 23:12, nor the cold, unmistakable grief in Jennifer's eyes as I searched for the woman I once knew. In that silence, every memory turned to shards. I remembered the days when our laughter filled these rooms, how her touch once set my heart ablaze. Now, her fingertips were as detached as a rehearsed line delivered by someone acting out a duty. I wandered through the house like a ghost, the worn-out carpet underfoot a reminder of better times. In the living room, the emptiness of the family photos on the mantel mocked me, the smiles caught in permanent happiness now mocked a life that was slipping away. I sank into the worn sofa, feeling the heavy weight of betrayal compress each breath. Tears I'd long suppressed now brimmed. I wasn't angry only at her, I was furious with myself for not seeing it sooner, for allowing complacency to be the armor around my heart. I began to recall the small betrayals. The furtive glances at her phone, the new perfume that clung to her clothes, the hushed whispers in the dark when I wasn't looking. Each memory was a needle pricking old wounds, and every prick signaled that I was done. I wasn't just losing my wife. I was losing the life I believed we'd built together. Brick by brick, trust had crumbled, replaced by deceit and dismissiveness. In that suffocating despair, I made a decision, would no longer be her silent spectator. I would break through the paralysis of denial and reclaim what little remained of my dignity. The next day, before the sun even crested the horizon, I packed a small bag. I took nothing but the essentials, a change of clothes, a family photo from happier times, and the watch. Not to confront her immediately, but as a symbol of something I could no longer ignore. I drove aimlessly, each mile an attempt to leave behind the heavy shadows of our fractured home. The city streets blurred as tears mixed with the rain on my windshield. It wasn't just about her leaving me with another lover, it was the cold inevitability in every look, every silence that confirmed she had built an alternate life. My mind raced between memories of our first dates, the quiet hope that once defined us, and the stark reality of her betrayal. In a small diner on the outskirts of town, over a cup of bitter coffee, I found a moment of clarity. I realized that the weight of her infidelity wasn't mine to bear, it was hers, and the consequences would be hers to face. I scribbled notes in a journal, every subtle change, every hushed message, every moment of indifference. This wasn't vengeance, I wasn't chasing retribution. It was truth. I needed to document my collapse so that I could learn to rebuild, even if I had to do it alone. I resolved, tomorrow, I would confront the evidence, ask for the answers I deserved, and if she couldn't provide them, I'd let her go. I'd reclaim the man I once was, a man who could feel deeply, who could love fiercely, and who wouldn't suffer in silence any longer. That decision lit a small spark in me, a promise that this would not be the end of my story, but the beginning of a painful yet necessary transformation. The next morning, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Jennifer moved through the kitchen like everything was normal, pouring Mary's cereal, humming some vintage soul tune under her breath. Her hair was still damp from the shower, curled slightly at the ends like it always did when she didn't bother with the flat iron. She wore that yellow blouse I used to love, the one with the tiny embroidered daisies near the collar. I watched her pour coffee into my mug like she had every morning for years, and for a moment, I almost believed it. That this was real. That we were okay. Then I remembered the message from Blue Lotus. Only a few more days. December 23rd was tomorrow. I sipped the coffee in silence and looked across the table at her. "You seem lighter today," I said. She blinked. "Do I?" I nodded. "Like you've made a decision." A flicker. "Barely there." Her fingers twitched on the mug. She recovered quickly, smiling in that tight way people do when they think they're still in control of the story. Maybe I'm just excited for Christmas. Mary's getting older, this might be the last year she really believes. I think this is the year we stop pretending, I said, voice calm. She froze. What? I know about him. Her knuckles went white around the ceramic handle. I saw the messages. I saw you with him at the cafe. I know everything, Jen. Silence. A thick, crushing silence. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. How long have you known? I leaned forward. Long enough to know you were planning to leave with him tomorrow. December 23rd, ring a bell. Her face went pale. I reached into my bag and set the watch on the table. It ticked steadily now. But I turned the face toward her. Every time it stopped, 23:12. Over and over again. Same time. And I didn't understand why. Until I remembered what the old man at the repair shop said. She stared at the watch like it was radioactive. I continued. He said to beware that date. That December 23rd meant something. Jennifer's lip trembled. She stood, backed away from the table. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said, voice cracking. I stood too, heart pounding. You didn't mean for what? To cheat? To lie? To look our daughter in the eyes every night knowing you were building an escape route with someone else? She didn't answer. Her eyes brimmed, but no tears fell. I wanted her to cry. To scream. To fight. But she didn't. She just stood there, small and silent in the middle of our kitchen, like a painting peeling off the wall. I pushed the final truth across the table. I know he booked the flight. I know he rented the hotel. I know you were going to meet him tonight. Her eyes widened. I wasn't going to go, she whispered. I didn't believe her. She reached for me, but I stepped back. You already left, Jen, I said. You left the moment you let someone else become your warmth. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she broke. Her knees buckled. She sank to the floor and sobbed, ugly, raw sobs that echoed off the cold tile. But it was too late. I walked out without slamming the door. Because I didn't need to destroy anything. It was already gone. December 23rd. The daytime was supposed to stop. The day Jennifer had planned to disappear. Instead, I was the one who left. That morning, I packed a bag, left a note for Mary with her favorite breakfast set out, chocolate chip waffles, sliced bananas, a note shaped like a heart. I told her I'd be back in a few days. That mommy and daddy needed to talk about some grown-up things, but none of it was her fault. She didn't understand, not yet. But someday, she would. And when that day came, I wanted to be able to look her in the eyes and say, I chose peace. I chose myself. I drove west with no plan. I turned off my phone. Let the silence settle in. No maps. No messages. Just the hum of tires and the ticking of the watch I kept clipped to my sun visor. The hands moved freely now. No more stopping at 23:12. I pulled into a small lakeside in somewhere past Iowa. The woman at the desk asked if I wanted a lake view or a fireplace. I picked the fireplace. I didn't need to look out, I needed to look in. That night, I sat alone in the room, the fire crackling low, and opened a fresh notebook. The first thing I wrote wasn't about Jennifer. It was about me. I forgot who I was. I let her become my story. That ends tonight. The next few pages flowed like a dam breaking. I wrote about our first kiss. Her laugh when she beat me at cards. The way she used to warm her feet against mine under the covers. I wrote about the dreams we never chased, the trips we never took. I wrote about the Jennifer I married, and the one who stood in front of me the day I told her goodbye. But then I wrote about myself. About the man who loved quietly, who forgave too easily, who buried hurt under loyalty. And about the man who finally stood up. By the time I closed the notebook, the fire had faded to embers. So had the rage. I didn't hate her. I just didn't need her anymore. I came back 3 days later. Mary greeted me with a hug so tight it undid me. Jennifer wasn't there. She'd left to stay at her sister's. No fights. No drama. Just distance, like the air had cleared between storms. We started the process: divorce, custody, therapy. It was hard. Messy. Some days, I questioned everything all over again. But I kept the watch on my nightstand, and every night, as its steady ticking filled the silence, I remembered. I survived. Weeks turned to months. I planted new roots. I found a small apartment near the school. I took Mary to dance practice and started cooking again, really cooking, with music playing and flour on the counter. I even joined a hiking group on Saturdays. Nothing dramatic. Just slow, steady steps into a life that was mine again. One day, Mary asked if I was happy. I smiled. I'm getting there. The last time I touched the watch, I flipped it over. On the back, I'd never noticed the engraving. Maybe it was new, maybe it was always there, and I'd just forgotten. It read, "Time doesn't heal. But it teaches you how to carry the weight." That night, I slept without dreaming. And when I woke, the sun was pouring through the blinds, and the watch ticked on, steady, soft, alive. Just like me. I thought I had already felt the worst of it. The heartbreak. The humiliation. The betrayal that hollowed out my chest every time I looked at the woman I once believed was the love of my life. But grief has layers. And I hadn't reached the bottom yet. 3 days after I confronted Jennifer, after I told her I knew everything and walked out, I was still numb. I'd been crashing on a friend's couch, letting the hours pass like smoke. I didn't eat much. Didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and waited for something, anything, to make sense again. That morning, December 23rd, my phone rang at 6:08 a.m. A number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. But something, some quiet instinct, made me pick up. "Is this Thomas Willis?" a flat voice asked. "Yes," I said, already knowing. "I'm sorry to inform you, your wife, Jennifer Willis, was found deceased in a hotel room early this morning. We believe she suffered a cardiac event." I didn't breathe. Not at first. The words hung in the air like fog I couldn't walk through. "Deceased?" I whispered. "Yes, sir." Paramedics were called by hotel staff when she didn't check out. They forced entry and found her unresponsive. We traced her identity from the records. I didn't hear the rest. Just a loud, rushing silence in my ears. My fingers went numb. A few hours later, I stood in that dim, impersonal hotel room with 2 officers. The air smelled like lavender cleaner and something bitter beneath it, fear, maybe. Or loss. There was a suitcase by the bed, half-zipped. Inside, passports, boarding passes, a thin blue scarf I bought her in Venice years ago. She'd kept it all this time. And beside the bed, on the table, was the watch. The one I'd given her. The one that had stopped 3 times at 23:12. Now, it was ticking again. And the hands? They pointed to 23:12. Exactly. I froze. I reached for it slowly, like it might burn me. It was warm in my palm. I didn't understand it, not fully. Maybe I never would. But something inside me knew that time had been trying to tell me. That some moments loop back around no matter how hard we try to outrun them. Later, I learned the rest. Jennifer had planned to leave the country with Sean that morning. The flight was booked. The room was paid for. She'd even written a note, half apology, half goodbye. But around midnight, she'd started having chest pains. She called him. He didn't come. She texted again. No reply. Security footage showed he left the hotel at 12:01 a.m. She died alone. Curled on that bed, still wearing the necklace Mary gave her last Christmas. A small heart charm that read "Love you, always." She must have held on to it until the very end. Grief is strange. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it just whispers endlessly, "What if? What if? What if?" I sat in the hotel lobby for what felt like hours, the watch still ticking in my hand. I don't know why I couldn't let go of it. Maybe because in some impossible, illogical way, I believed it had known all along. That 2312 wasn't just a time. It was a warning. One I ignored. Because I didn't want to believe the woman I loved could disappear from me twice, first in betrayal, then in death. I buried her in silence. Not out of hate, but out of honesty. There was no eulogy that could have told the whole truth. Not without breaking our daughter's heart. So I just stood beside the casket, the cold wind biting at my coat, and whispered. I forgive you. But I won't follow you. Months have passed now. Mary and I are trying. Healing in small ways. I make her pancakes every Saturday. She colors drawings of us, always with the sun in the corner. The watch sits in a drawer. Still ticking. I don't look at it much. But some nights, I lie awake and think about what it all meant, how the hands froze at 2312 every time my life was about to change. How fate might not shout, but it always whispers. And now? Now, I listen. Because sometimes, coincidences aren't coincidences at all. They're warnings. And the real tragedy is how often we ignore them, until it's too late.